We all know that Brookline has some wonderful attributes, and Brookline CAN is out to ensure that elder citizens and everybody have even a more livable and wonderful community. So if you are not a member, we urge you to sign up and become a member. There are brochures at the back of the room, and Brookline CAN sponsors these educational events and also is the strong advocacy arm for Aging Network. We work to ensure that there are safe pedestrian walkways, that your streets are shoveled and sidewalks, and advocating on all kinds of issues that concern our citizens. So we urge you to become a member. And again, please use the brochure or sign up online. For those of you who may not be familiar with the building, the bathrooms are in the back to the left. Please get up and use them as you may need. When you came in, we hope that you picked up an index card for your questions. Please take a moment to fill them out, and staff that helped orchestrate this event will be around to collect them for Secretary Hartstein to answer or to pose to this panel this evening. There are also many community resources who are in attendance, and we hope that they will identify themselves at the end of the event to provide some information and share their resources. We are fortunate in Brookline and Massachusetts to have so many services. With that, it brings me a great pleasure to introduce our moderator. Ann Hartstein is both a friend and colleague, and she's somebody that I like to say started in elder services at the age of 4 like myself, because she brings so many years of experience and is a true advocate to the senior community. Ann started her career, well, I don't know if it was your start, but really got her training as the Needham Council on Aging Director for 11 years, where she ran the Council on Aging and Senior Center. She was the Executive Director of the Mass Association of Older Americans, another important advocacy arm that started with Frank Manning that ensures that this Commonwealth has wonderful services and that the citizens are well taken care of. And she has led the Executive Office of Elder Affairs since 2009 as its head, and we are so fortunate to have her at the head of the Executive Office of Elder Affairs. Please give her a warm welcome.
Thank you, Ruth Ann. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and to share with all of you the great information that's going to come from our panelists tonight. As Secretary of Elder Affairs, I'm always pleased to come to communities and see that communities are committed to the work that they do. And in Brookline, that's always been true. There's never been a time when Brookline has not been a leader in elder services and working not only for elders, but with elders. And the CAN committee is an example of that, where people come together and say there's something that needs to be done and we will take care of it. So I just want to congratulate all of you who are here tonight, who are from Brookline, with the great job that you've done. So give yourself a round of applause. Everything you always wanted to know about elder care. Do you think we can do that in a couple hours? I don't think so. But the key is that hopefully the information that you'll get tonight will be information that will spark your thoughts about what it is you should be looking for, what your community should be hoping for, and the kind of opportunities that there are to take advantage of services that exist here, as well as for you personally to share your expertise and your skills with others in the community. So we look forward to that. As you can see, we have an esteemed panel here. You've already met Ruth Ann Dovek, who you know very well, who's the director of the Brookline Council on Aging. Next to her is John Monitz, who's the Goddard House Assisted Living Director. Is that correct? Director of the Goddard House Assisted Living. Next to him is Rhonda Lyman, who's the Executive Director of Center Communities of Brookline, where I just had the pleasure actually of spending some of the afternoon over there with residents there, and that was very nice. Then we have Paul Hollings, who's the Administrator of Coolidge House Skilled Nursing and Rehabilitation Center. Welcome, Paul. And on the far end is Ellen Lash, who's the Director of Health for Healthcare Operations for Jewish Family and Children's Services. So this is a great panel, and I will be giving them time to answer questions, but first I want to say a few words. The Executive Office of Elder Affairs, we hope that over time people will really understand that elders are an asset to communities and that elders need to be recognized as such. The current population in Massachusetts for elders, you know what that is? 1.2 million. Percentage of the population, about 20%. Within the next 10 years, it will be 25%. So 1 in 4 people that people will see, and certainly in Brookline, it's a high percentage as well, will be over 60. So we're really looking at an aging population and a demographic that's never existed before. If you look across, as many of you have heard, 10,000 people a day are turning 65. It's an aging population, and we've never had a demographic like this before. If you think about all the people who have ever reached the age of 65 who have ever been born on the earth, 2/3 of us are alive today. So if you think about that, again, from the beginning of time, whatever you want to call it, when people are first joining the earth, 2/3 of the people who have ever reached the age of 65 are alive today. That demonstrates how different our life is today, our society is today, and how different our society will be. In Massachusetts, the average age people live to keeps going up and up and up. It's now up to 80.7 years. And we know that people who live to be age 65, for the most part, will live another 20 years. So we have a long opportunity to participate in society after we reach age 65. I turned 61 this year, and last year when I turned 60, I thought, I'm now eligible for the services that I oversee. And people said, oh no, not you, you're too young. I said, well, it depends on how you define that. I'm not too young. I may not need some of the services, but it's not about age. And I try to talk to people about the issue of ageism, and hopefully we'll get into that a little bit in the panel as well. So I think we really do need to make sure that we're looking at ourselves and our lives, and elders not as the other. How many times, and I know my mother, before she passed away, said this to me many times, I said, why don't you go to the senior center? Why don't you participate in activities? And she said, I'm not old enough, right? They're old people, I'm not. And she was the same age as they were. So I think we really do need to make sure that we're looking at things in a way that makes some sense for us. I will now open it up to the panel. There's a number of, as Ruth Ann said, if you have questions that you already know about, write them down on the cards, and they'll be collected around that way. If there's something that comes up while people are speaking and it creates a question for you, make sure you write that down and then put that in the envelope too. And then I'll go through those and use those to ask questions of the panel. So the first question that I'd like to ask the panel, which is a question that will really help us get started, and that is, who are the consumers or the customers that you serve today and how? So who wants to start? Yes. The question is, who are the clients or consumers that you serve today, and how do you serve them?
I'll start, Ann.
Okay.
So I'm just going to start with a couple of Brookline demographics that mirror what you were saying about the Commonwealth. So in Brookline, we currently have 10,816 seniors over the age of 60. Of those, it's about split even, whether they live in private homes or in apartments. 49% live in private homes and 51% in apartments. Of that, we have a very strong, diverse community with a lot of Asians, Russians, and a growing Hispanic elder population in Brookline. So, and we see the two generations as you described, Anne, the 60-year-old who may have thought they were going to work another 7 to 10 years and may experience a health problem and be forced to either retire or go part-time and needs assistance in looking for health insurance and wants a SHINE counselor to provide some benefits for Medicare. That same 60-year-old may be responsible for an elderly parent and needs some caregiving. On the other end of the spectrum, we are seeing people 90, 99, and 100 who are still living independently in the community. This week, a gentleman who just is about to turn 99 signed up for our fitness center and lives alone. So that you're talking about 40 years of service, potentially, and at the Council on Aging, we're seeing each and every one of those.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. So Garden House, the population age is anywhere from 65 to 104. And we have about 115 apartments, and 40 of those apartments are in a dementia area. And what we do provide are services to assist in activities of daily living and to really support someone that needs that just additional help, but might be at home isolating themselves, but would like some engagement, and because family might be away. So that's a lot of our population is probably a resident from Brookline, family is away, and then we do have quite a bit of people that are at Goddard that live there independently, that have a vehicle on premises, and it's a wonderful place. I've been at Goddard House for just under a year, and I have to say the Brookline community has been very welcoming, and the community itself at Goddard is very diverse. That's all I have to say.
Before you pass the microphone, John, could you do two things? One is describe what an ADL is, since we don't use terms that people don't understand, and also what assisted living is.
So activities of daily living is, so you just your basic needs, dressing needs, showering needs, ambulation. So that's some services that we can help provide you when you're in the assisted living. And assisted living is really a social model that really provides services, and it really helps engages a community. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's that?
You want to mention prices of services you have provided?
We can do that on the questions. Yep.
Well, maybe they can, since they're the ones.
There's lots of services represented here, so we'll make sure that we get to that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. At Center Communities of Brookline, we have a diverse population, a very vibrant population that comes because of the choices that we offer for people at all different levels of income, of ability, of age. We have people from many different religions, different cultures, linguistic backgrounds, and just a little bit more about each of those. So in terms of income level, we have 1/3 of our approximately 530 residents are market rate. The other 2/3 are living at some level of subsidy based on their income, from moderate to low to very low to very, very low. So depending on income, we have a lot of options available. The same quality of life and services are available to all, and it really is one community with this diversity within. In terms of ages, we also have a very large young, classified as young and disabled population in our community. So we have residents from 30 to 103, not quite at the 104 yet, so quite a wide range there. And in terms of ability, some are older and quite frail and need access to a lot of healthcare services, assistance in their home, and that is available in our community. And to those who are very vibrant and young and active in the community, in fact, we find most of our residents come because it's in Brookline and they love that the urban feel, the rich resources, the wonderful opportunities of the Brookline community, and many are out walking and participating in that. In terms of religion, we don't count that, but we know there's quite a variety, and we have interfaith activities going on in all of our buildings. And culturally, we have 95 Russian-speaking residents, we have Cantonese-speaking residents, many different languages. And with all, it's really having those options and choice that brings that wide diversity.
Thank you. My name is Paul Hollings. I'm the administrator of Coolidge House, which is a skilled nursing facility. We have 158 beds. We provide both short-term and long-term care. We're probably more commonly thought of as a nursing home. But if you notice, all hospitals call themselves hospitals, right? There's New England Baptist Hospital, Brigham Women's Hospital. No nursing homes call themselves nursing homes because nobody wants to be in a nursing home, right? How many of you are looking forward to the day when you can move into a nursing home? Okay, so I'm the least popular person up here. But let me just say that we actually provide a very important service, and I think we do it very well for a number of people. We have 3 floors, so we're an 8-story building. We have 3 floors on which we provide long-term care and 3 on which we provide short-term care. So they're very distinct services that we provide. The people who we serve on our long-term care units, approximately half of them have some form of dementia, or they have very extensive physical needs, extensive needs with activities of daily living, unlike at Goddard House, where they might just have a few needs. They have pretty extensive needs and really need round-the-clock nursing care. We provide a variety of services for them. We provide nursing care, nurses, nursing assistants. We have a doctor who visits most days of the week. We have a dietitian. We have social workers and therapists and activity programs. But it is their home, and we try and address the quality of life as well as the quality of care. And then on our other 3 floors, we provide care for people who have short-term care needs. So these are most often are coming from the hospital, having had a stay in the hospital. We have a number of people who come in who have had a total knee replacement or a total hip replacement or back surgery or have had a fractured hip. So we have an orthopedics floor where we really specialize in the orthopedics. But people also come in and they've had a car accident they're recovering from, or they've had a stroke, or any number of pneumonia, any number of things that they might need a short-term stay for to get back on their feet and go home. And the average person there stays for about 2 to 3 weeks. And in fact, for people coming in for orthopedic care, for knee replacements and hip replacements, they're often staying for less than a week these days. So there's a real impetus to provide a very short stay and get people back on their feet and back home and transition them to home health care services. The average age of people on our long-term care units, it ranges really anywhere from 80 to 106. So we win that one, I think. Ellie's probably going to outdo me here. But somebody celebrated her 106th birthday today, but she swore to me she wasn't a day over 95. And then on our short-term unit, short-term floors, we have people ranging in age from 25 to 95. People come in with a variety of needs, and they represent a variety of ages. We'll talk about insurances to answer your question over there. Our daily private rate for living in the building at different floors, different levels of care ranges anywhere from $400 to $550 a day. So it's a lot of money. That's something to know about. Most people's stay is covered for by insurance, Medicaid, Medicare, or private insurances. I think that's about it. I'll pass it on to Ellen here.
Thank you, Paul. So I'm with the Jewish Family and Children's Service Visiting Nurse Association, which is otherwise known as a VNA or a home health agency. And as Paul said, very often we get patients who have already been to the hospital, they've had surgery, total hip replacements, total knee replacements. Sometimes they go to a place like Coolidge House to get more intense rehab there, and then when they come home, as Paul says, they'll often go to a home health agency like ours. We have nurses, rehab therapists, medical social work, and home health aides that help people who are homebound due to medical reasons. So some of our patients, as Paul said, are very short term. They're coming home after surgery. They need some help learning about new medications. They need some rehab therapy. And they don't stay with us for a very long time. We have other patients who stay with us a bit longer. And the typical profile is somebody probably about 80 years old, living alone in their home. The home could be their private home, their apartment, it could be center communities, it could be Goddard House. There are many different ways we describe a home. We support that person who typically has chronic medical or degenerative diseases. They're on multiple medications, and they need assistance with things like shopping, meal preparation, or personal care. These are clients who need supports and social connections to enable them to remain in a community setting. And we're able to fortunately tap into the other resources that Jewish Family and Children's Service has available in terms of care management, mental health services, support groups for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's for both the clients and their families. So, you know, we see right here a very interesting continuum of services where people would stay with a home health agency like ours for a relatively short period of time, but they might have a longer association with our agency for other services. And as they become frailer or need more supports, they may move on to a place like Center Communities, or beyond that, they might even move into Goddard House and Coolidge House. So we really have a wide range of the continuum here represented.
Thank you, panelists. We'll continue now. I want to talk a little bit about the continuum of care that Ellen mentioned. It used to be that we would think of it as a straight line, okay? You lived independently, you had some problems, maybe you got some in-home help, right? And then it became, you need more support, so maybe you went to assisted living, even though assisted living didn't really exist then, right? And then you went to a nursing facility. And that was the trajectory, right? That's what we thought old age is, that's what we're all going to end up with. Well, it's not really the way it works these days. It's no longer a straight line, okay? People can be in independent living. If they have a fall and they need rehab, they can go to the nursing facility for rehab, right? Then they come home and they have assistance from the home health agency, right? And then they go back to their home. And then they might need a little bit of home care. And then they're back to what they were before. So those are it's a different scenario that we can imagine for ourselves if we think more broadly about the kinds of things that we're looking for and when we need them. So we try to say to people, nursing facilities are not just places to go at the end of your life. Okay, they are places to go for rehabilitation. They're places to go to get the supports that you need given the circumstances that you are in. And they're not places that is necessarily the last place you're going to be. Going there is not, as Paul said, the worst thing in the world. There is a role for nursing facilities to play for people who need that extra assistance. But it doesn't mean that once you go there, you never come out. And Paul, we're very clear about that. People do leave the nursing facility. At the state level, we have a program called Community First. And what that says is people can choose the living setting that they want and hopefully be able to get the services they need. So utilizing some home health agencies, utilizing a lot of home care through Springwell. People know what Springwell is? Aging Service Access Point that serves the Brookline community and surrounding areas. You can receive some of those same services that in the past you would have had to go to a nursing facility to receive. And you can stay at home if you choose to. If you choose not to, you can go into the nursing facility and receive those same services. If you're living at center communities, those services can come in as well. So what Community First means is that you all have a choice about where you receive the care you want. And it's our job, from a government point of view and from a private sector point of view, to make sure that you have access to those services. Now, there are some services that have eligibility requirements, right, that require you to be of certain income, below a certain income, that you have certain ADL needs, as John was talking about. So there are requirements that you sometimes have to meet to fit certain programs. But overall, our hope is that those requirements aren't going to limit your access to the services that you need when you need them. We also at the state level have instituted a program called Options Counseling. And that program permits people to meet with someone who has the expertise to talk with them about the kinds of hopes and dreams that they have about the services they need or the help they need in the long-term services and supports area, and get those, whether they're low income, have higher income, whether they're young or old, meaning whether they're under 65 or over 65. It's for people of all disabilities, so everyone who has, doesn't matter what your disability is, Medicare, Medicaid, doesn't matter. Options Counseling can help you figure out what those services might be. You have represented on the panel a number of variable services, but also people who understand how all the pieces fit together. And I think that's one thing that we'll talk a little bit more about. It's a really exciting time right now to be in elder services. It's an incredible time because there are so many more options for people. And what most options will do is sit down with you and have you describe what it is you're looking for, what it is you want and what you need, and then try and find the resources that fit that. So it's not like somebody's going to come in and say, oh, I think you need a homemaker who can make your meals for you. And that's your choice. If you want someone to make your meals for you, or if you don't want to make your meals yourself, you can choose among many different options. You can have home-delivered meals, if you're home out. You can have someone come in and make your meals. You can go out to a nutrition site and eat with other folks. So you have many different options. As a consumer who's never had to deal with this before, it's oftentimes really difficult for you to know what questions to ask for the resources you need. And that's why it's important to consult with a professional around this to say, this is what I need, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I think I need, and then have them ask you questions and interact with you to see how what they have to offer or what there is to offer can best meet your needs. So for me, it's a really exciting time to be in elder services, to be working in this field, and to working with each of you to make sure that you're getting the supports you need. But I want to ask the panel, what's the most exciting thing for each of you in terms of working in elder care today? You want to start, Ann? Okay, actually, why don't we start with Ellen since the microphone's down there. We'll come back this way.
Okay. Well, it is an exciting time. I mean, I think that we're in a time, in the olden days, which weren't that long ago, we really looked at people as if they were their disease, be it dementia or anything else. And now, as Secretary Hartstein said, we try very hard to look at the whole person, figure out what they need, and recognizing that we need to involve everybody, really, who's in that consumer's life. It's their family, it's their caregivers, it's the people who work in their housing situations, as well as all their healthcare providers. And we've also realized that we can't work in silos anymore. We all have to do this together. And to me, that in itself is very, very exciting.
All right, so I guess I'm next. I'm excited because one of the things I've been telling my friends for a long time is that I work in the least efficient sector of the economy, healthcare. But I've actually, my son's going to college next year. I found there's actually one area which is even less efficient. But the costs have been spiraling for colleges even more than healthcare. But we haven't been operating in a very logical fashion. We haven't been operating in a way that looks at the whole person and what their needs are. And in fact, as providers, we've all been rewarded for the more care that we provide. So a hospital surgeon gets rewarded for saying, oh yeah, you need to have major surgery, which I can bill $20,000 to your insurance company for, rather than what you really need is to be referred for physical therapy treatment, for which I'll just get $100 for the visit. Now, hopefully, doctors are acting ethically, but boy, that financial incentive is pretty big. All of us have been rewarded that way for a long time. The more we do, the more money we get. What's really fascinating right now, as part of the Affordable Care Act, but also just as part of reform that's happening within the healthcare payment system, is that it's starting to change now, so we're actually getting rewarded sometimes for doing less. Hospitals are getting penalized now if people come back after they're discharged. We are getting pressured now from insurers to get people home quickly after they've come in for rehabilitation. So we have very intensive rehabilitation. We try and get them home for home care as quickly as possible. Now, that's supposed to be balanced with other considerations. So in fact, there's something called the triple aim, which is part of the Affordable Care Act, and it says there's 3 goals. One is reducing cost, one is to improve the health of the community, and the third is essentially the satisfaction of the customers with the care that they've received. So all of those things are coming into play now, and I think we're starting to see a change in the way that healthcare is provided. The jury is out right now on, I don't know if you've been reading the stories in the paper, but the healthcare cost inflation has been way down over the last several years. And the jury is out now about whether that's because of the economy or because of changes in the healthcare system. In fact, most people say that the heavier impact is the economy. I have to tell you that working within the system, I see enormous pressures on our costs. And I think that a lot of that is coming about as part of reform. So that's very exciting. It's also very challenging. So may you live in interesting times, right? And I think the other thing I would just like to say is what I also love is a focus on quality of life and empowerment of people in the system now. I mean, as a consumer, it used to be, you were told this is where you're going to go, this is the doctor you're going to have, this is the service you're going to get. There's a lot more emphasis now on empowerment and choices, and that is very exciting to me.
So I think one of the most exciting things is to be able to have the opportunity to think creatively about how to offer the best quality of life to people as they age. And this really mirrors a national trend, as you pointed out, from long-term care as a destination, and that was it, to thinking creatively about what people need at a particular time in their life and how to best provide that. And nationally, we see a movement from acute care to more coordinated care to true community integration. And at Hebrew Senior Life, how I see that playing out, there's been a long history. You may know we were founded in 1903, so 111 years ago, we were really all about long-term care, and it really was very much needed. But we realized a few years ago that we had such a long waiting list at our location in Roslindale, which is a long-term care facility. We had 500 people on the waiting list. So we did a study with Tufts, and what we found was that over half of those individuals could live very well independently in the community with the right supports. And it changed our thinking, and it really refocused our paradigm to almost flip what we do. So even in the year 2000, the majority of what we did as an organization was serve long-term care needs of individuals in the community in long-term care settings. And we began to build more independent housing and supportive housing and center communities as a result of that thinking that allowed people to live in community much, much longer. And to me, the most exciting is that we're at the cusp of thinking about how to go to the next step, so moving more into the community. So if you look at our paradigm today, it's almost upside down, where the majority of what we're providing is community-based services with supportive housing, the next smallest, and long-term care, the very smallest. And we want to grow that community piece and think creatively and partner with community organizations, work collaboratively, with our colleagues in Brookline and other wonderful healthcare organizations, senior living organizations, to create the best models that we can, really focused on community and quality of life for all adults as they age.
Thanks, Rhonda. Well, what I find exciting about working at Guarded House, it's a not-for-profit, and it's been around since 1849. And so, it's amazing to love your job. And I work with wonderful people. I have a great team. And the residents there love living there. And we're not always perfect, but we provide them with the services and the quality of care that they deserve. You've all worked very hard, and Guarded House has been around for a very long time and can provide different type of help in regards to affordability. We're part of the Brookline Affordability and the PACE program. And there's things there to support, like having a full-time social worker on at Guarded House. We have, I love going into work because yesterday the van driver called out and I was able to get on that van and go on a trip with about 8 residents to the Mount Auburn Cemetery. And that was just amazing. It's so enriching to get that and to see them enjoy what we can offer them. So it's really awesome to be able to love your job and be passionate about it and see the smiles on the residents. So it's really exciting.
Thank you. I think for me, I would mirror what was discussed on this panel, where we're seeing true collaboration and empowerment of seniors working together. So an example in Brookline around dealing with Alzheimer's disease, we are now collaboratively working with an organization called ARTS. It takes a village model where instead of having competition between providers, who owns the client, where does that client get service, you're seeing this collaboration and integration like on this panel today. So taking again an Alzheimer's example where somebody who's living in the community can go to the Coolidge Corner movie house for free with their caregiver for a program, come here and have a visual poetry where residents from Goddard House and Chestnut Park came, work together on trying to provide respite for families with Alzheimer's, working with the state organizations on options, everybody with the best interest for the client. And I also think the second thing that we're on the edge of some wonderful research and maybe technology breakthroughs in the aging field.